You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Okay, and we are live. Welcome in, everybody, to the inaugural first live episode of Building the Broncos. I am your very temporary and short-term host of today's podcast, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, well, I guess I shouldn't say always. That's my rote thing, right? That's what I'm used to saying. With me, I'm excited to pass the baton to these guys, and I'm sure most of you, of course, know Carl and know Nick here. And we'll let's go ahead and do this and get rid of these so you can see who each guy is here. And, of course, your hosts for Building the Broncos, Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler. I'm Chad Jensen. Guys, how you doing tonight? Nick, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. Like always, got to start off with the weather. It looks like it's going to be cold coming up here. Classic Midwest, but that means draft season's around the corner. The days are getting longer. I think we're 40 days out until we have sunlight past 7 p.m. So, I'm excited. I'm being optimistic today. Good
to hear. Carl, how about you, bro?
Well, I walked outside in sandals this morning, and that was a big mistake because it was snowing. So I haven't learned my lesson yet. I'm still that stubborn guy that wears shorts in the middle of winter.
Gotcha. Well, guys, listen up. Most of you, like I said, you guys are all, for the most part, well acquainted with Nick and Carl. I mean, after all, they've been publishing 2 podcasts per week for the last year plus. So you need no introductions from me. However, you guys got to keep in mind, these guys are a couple of OGs that have been with me now dating back to, they've been with Mile High Huddle now, 2017, I think it was, guys, that we all kind of crossed paths, right? And came together to forge this triumvirate, this power union in Broncos football analysis. These guys have been plugging away. In fact, this was way back when we first brought these guys on. I was doing, of course, Mile High Huddle was doing its thing, but I was actually doing a podcast called Locked On Broncos at the time. But I had already started Huddle Up the year prior with my original co-host, Luke Polglaze. But when we decided to do Locked On Broncos, we had the whole Huddle Up podcast RSS feed just chilling. And so when we brought Nick and Carl on, Nick from the get-go was like, hey, dude, we want to do a podcast. And I was like, yeah, let's just have you do Huddle Up. And then so for a short while, wasn't too long, it was like a month, maybe 6 weeks, you had Huddle Up podcast going. You had me and Luke on Locked On Broncos. And then eventually we decided to resign from Locked On Broncos, and we all combined forces on our podcast side with Huddle Up. That went on for a while, and then we named shows specifically, and here we are. It's just cool, guys, if you think about it, to see how this whole podcast thing has taken shape and grown, and especially over the last year when we decided to take our shows, basically make Mile High Huddle's podcast programming a daily deal, literally one for every day of the week. I mean, it's just grown by leaps and bounds, but what a ride it's been so far.
Yeah. I've loved every moment of it. I mean, Nick and I, it's been quite a ride with you, buddy.
Yeah, I know. We just literally found each other via a good friend of ours, Scott Porter, on a forum. I know it kind of maybe dates us a little bit, but back and forth, I'm like, man, this guy, CD Dumler, man, I'm a fan, and asked if he'd come join us on obviously Mile High Huddle, and just started up the podcast, and here we go from there. He still owes me a beer because he was a Paxton Lynch truther. I know I'm going to bring that up if we're going to be on video today.
Wow, you and your wife a beer.
My wife, yeah, exactly. So we're not drinking like Natty Lights or anything. We got expensive taste. So, but it's really excited. I'm excited to be here to talk another year of draft with you. I mean, we're really getting into the crux of it now. The Senior Bowl's come and gone. The Combine is right around the corner. Free agency. I mean, this is literally, I know that obviously the games are the best part of the year, but the hope that is free agency and the off season makes it just so much fun for armchair GMs and people who like to ponder all the possibilities like you and I do.
Right. Well, and I just think of Chad always has to kind of like hone us in with our draft stuff, because we start pretty much April. Well, the next day after the draft is over, going, hey, can we start doing mock drafts of the next draft? And he's like, no. So, it's good for us. We need that, because otherwise it would be 24/7 draft, and that wouldn't be fun. But guys, we're excited that it's finally that. Yeah, well, yeah. But it's exciting that we're finally to that season now.
Heck yeah. And I hope our listeners and our live viewers right now, I hope you guys have your draft questions ready, because these guys are really going to drop some knowledge. I, unfortunately, can't stay for the entire podcast. I had a prior engagement. I just wanted to kind of be able to publicly give them some love and pass the baton, if you will. But these guys are going to crush it and hang out with you guys for the foreseeable future. If I know Nick and Carl, they'll be on here with you now for, I don't know, 5.5 hours, something like that. I kid. However, they're going to take you down through the whole home stretch. Before I sign off and wish you guys all a good evening, I just want to remind our listeners really quickly, because these guys have a couple of topics they want to get to and discuss with you and with each other, and then they're going to get to some of your questions. But in the meantime, first, guys, make sure that you are following the main. Well, for these guys, actually, let me do this. Let me type this up real quick. This is their podcast Twitter account, and let me grab it. Bear with me. Okay, right there. You want to follow these guys' Twitter at BTB Football Pod, and then as you can see where to follow them individually. Oh, there you go. Try it again. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, I can't reach over across.
There you go. Anyway,
just to slap himself.
So make sure you're following the appropriate Twitter handles, and then don't forget, guys, this is Building the Broncos, of course, and including Dove Valley Deep Divers and Building the Broncos. When it comes to Apple Podcasts, it's all under the umbrella of Huddle Up. So please head on over there. It's a great organic way to support our shows and everything we do to bring you daily Broncos podcast content. Leave a creative review. Let each show know what you think of them, how we're doing for you. And if you like what we're all doing, give us a 5-star rating. It's a great organic way to support what we're doing for you on the podcast side. And with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, break a leg, have fun. Guys, all of our awesome listeners and viewers, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. And Nick and Carl, have fun, my dudes.
Yeah, good luck, man.
All right, guys.
Good luck to us.
Yeah.
Amen. Have fun, guys.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right. Well, be nice to us since this is our first live episode, and we're very excited. I mean, we've been talking about this for a week, or well, I guess a couple weeks now, since Chad's been getting us excited about this opportunity. So we're excited to get to some questions with you guys. But make sure, again, you're following us on Twitter, because we'd love to talk on there if you haven't seen, especially Nick. I mean, do you live on that thing? Is that how you communicate with your wife too? Or
no, I think I just it helps me pass some time between patients at work. So I'm definitely enjoy it. Twitter, that's probably my go-to. Also Facebook. I mean, probably thing is, when I'm on it a lot, and then I just completely will be off it. Like if I'm off the grid, 48 hours, whatever, camp trip. But Twitter, yeah, if you need to get me a draft Bronco anything, tell me I'm stupid, tell me my hair looks good or bad, just add me on Twitter.
All right. Well, we have a couple topics we wanted to get to, and then plenty of questions, hopefully, about draft and free agency and just the entire offseason. So very excited to get to that. But let's get to our first topic here. And just I've seen a couple people already in the comments have kind of talked a little bit about just this past weekend was pretty tough for sports world. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a basketball fan or not, but obviously the death of Kobe Bryant just kind of impacted us all in different ways. Yeah. I think of, like for me, I have a daughter that's 4 years old and we play basketball and those kind of things. But I saw a lot of people say that Kobe was the reason that they fell in love with sports. And so I wanted to start with this question, and any of our listeners, you can chime in as well on this. And I just wanted to ask this question. Who is that player that really got you to fall in love with sports?
Well, for me, it definitely is an obvious one. And I grew up a Bronco fan. I went to John Elway for Halloween. I had a Shannon Sharp jersey, a Terrell Davis jersey, a couple different John Elway jerseys. But the guy who made me first fall in love with sports was Mark McGwire. My first memory of anything sports related was that home run chase between him and Sammy Sosa in 1998. And I actually went to a game at Wrigley Field, one of the first games I ever remember. That was Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. Mark McGwire ended up hitting 2 home runs and Sammy Sosa hit 1. And it was nuts. So it's second grade, my teacher was like, my parents like, oh yeah, he really likes Mark McGwire. And my teacher was like, no, he is Mark McGwire. So that's the one that just absolutely obsessed with him. And from there, my sports love grew from there. So, and also my disdain for the Chicago Cubs. I'd really dislike some teams, but the Chicago Cubs are my least favorite team in all of sports.
Yeah, they need to burn that ivy down.
Yeah, it's
too many balls get lost.
It's green, I guess, but
yeah. For our listeners that don't know, we're both St. Louis Cardinals fans. I'm sorry for our Rockies listeners or Cubs listeners, but
I like the Rockies too.
This is something else we bonded over before There you go. But no, that was a fun chase watching Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire go for. I know there's some looking now on the past of some things that might have been going on, but no, that was a fun time of baseball for me. It is a Denver Bronco player. It's not John Elway. I've seen a lot of people already saying John Elway is the guy. Even a Tim Tebow in here. Ooh. Man, yeah. Woo.
My guy.
I love this one. John Lynch. That's another good one. I like that. But no, Terrell Davis.
TD.
Mile High Salute. I loved it. I still remember that first Super Bowl. I grew up in Kansas. I'm still in Kansas. So I'm surrounded by Chiefs fans. And so my school, there was like four or five of us that were Bronco fans. And we got together for that Super Bowl at my house. And I remember, I think Terrell Davis did a goal line touchdown in that first game against the Packers there. And so I tried to mimic it, and I dove over our couch, landed on a table that was full of chocolate pudding, and it went flying all over our couch. I got grounded for that Super Bowl, but hey, it was worth it. Every moment of it. So that's one of my favorite football memories from when I was a kid. And so, Terrell Davis was my guy. Now I realize wanting to be a running back is not your best bet in football. But back then, that's all I wanted to be, Terrell Davis.
If I had to go with a Bronco, I probably would have to say Shannon Sharp. Yeah. I think the game was called NFL Game Day. It was, I believe, PlayStation exclusive. And, you could run whatever plays you wanted, but there was a play where it was pretty much a post, I guess, and there was no tight end like Shannon Sharp in the game at that time. And there was nobody who could guard him. So I probably played on rookie mode. I'd have been, 5-6 years old, but I would finish games with 500 receiving yards to Shannon Sharp. I wouldn't throw it to anybody else. It's just he's open again against the linebackers. Of course he is. Yep. And also kind of probably in hindsight, if I had a kid and they were a fan of this guy, I'd be like, maybe not, but I really like Bill Romanowski, the energy that he brought, the tenacity, the reckless abandon. I mean, that is football, right? That's, as a kid, that's kind of what I wanted to be. Yeah. So I really enjoyed being those guys and when I got to play the game and anything. So those are probably my favorites from when I was really young.
I can't disagree with you. I am a wide receiver guy. So Rod Smith, you got to love the underdog guy that just nobody expected to do as well as he did. I absolutely loved watching him play football. I mean, he just played with that reckless abandon. Ed McCaffrey. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that broken leg. I was watching that live, and that was the first time I ever cried watching sports.
He probably has one of my favorite, besides the helicopter, he has my favorite play from that Super Bowl where he blocked that guy and then he went over the top of him and pointed at him. I did that probably in the schoolyard multiple times, and I was, not the best. That was pretty darn great. And I see we obviously have some great throwbacks here. I saw Floyd Little for one from Irvin Bailey there. I saw somebody mention Randy Gradishar and Rulon Jones. I mean, gosh, we're talking some real throwbacks there. So that is awesome. So
Skip Bayless.
Yeah, hopefully you're not calling me Skip Bayless. I'm going to start calling him swole in that shirt.
No, I'm saying somebody made the comment that Skip Bayless is the guy that made him fall in love with sports.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I guess
you know what?
He does. Yeah,
he's fun. I mean,
he is.
That's the point. It's entertainment. So it looks like we got a super chat here. I'm going to see if I'm doing this correctly to show it. All right, I guess we can get off a little off topic. We'll come back to it here. But Aaron Lynch here, good name. That's actually one of our. Wasn't that a player that was in the draft a few years ago, an edge rusher from South Florida, Aaron Lynch? Yep. But at pick 15, here's the question right here. Do you think the Denver Broncos address line needs with someone like Tyler Biadasz or add skill position with someone like Ruggs or Judy, or is it too risky to target offensive line in later rounds? Well, that is a good question. I'm going to take that off the screen there so you can see my beautiful face, and Carl's too, I guess. But for me, I don't think Tyler Biadasz is worth the 15th overall pick personally. Now, if we are looking at his tape from his redshirt freshman year and redshirt sophomore year, I think that you could tuck yourself into a late first round pick. But this past season, he had surgery, and he didn't play the same level for me. I go back and watch the games against Ohio State and even that game against Iowa. I thought he wasn't the best. He had a pretty mediocre game, I thought, against Oregon as well. I actually right now have 3 centers I prefer in this class to Tyler Biadasz. Guys like, obviously, Lloyd Cushenberry, who just had the really good Senior Bowl, probably the talk of the town of the Senior Bowl. Matt Hennessy from Temple is another really good one. And my favorite center in this class is Cesar Ruiz from Michigan, who played right guard and center. So obviously with the scheme change here coming a little bit with the Broncos, they might be going more power as opposed to zone heavy like they had with Scangarello, giving Munchak a little bit more reins with the run scheme. That could change things a little bit. I was actually doing a draft today, and I kind of had a hard time not going to Tyler Biadasz, but I think he's more of a guy who you're looking at bottom of round 3, probably is the range I would be looking to get him. And maybe I'm anti-Wisconsin bias, need to see how he tests and everything, but this year's tape really left a bad taste in my mouth.
Right. You see a lot of the big boards are starting to catch up, the media big boards, where he was that top 20 pick for a long time. And now people have kind of watched his tape from this past year and seen him kind of drop off a little bit. He just didn't up his game after he showed so much promise last year.
He regressed. He
did. And so there is a lot of bit of worry of what happened there. Why did that happen? So he wouldn't be my choice if we're going offensive line. Only the offensive tackles there at 15. I don't think there's an interior guy. I know Ruiz is your guy, but I don't think you're even willing to take him there at 15.
I don't think there's a pure interior offensive line guy this year that's going in the first round.
Right.
Unless for some reason Tristan Wirfs or Andrew Thomas gets transitioned there.
Right.
But,
right. And you just wrote an article on this not too long ago about should the Broncos build the offensive line or should they build the weapons? And we even had a podcast on this not too long ago about looking at the 49ers and Chiefs. What do the Broncos need to do to start looking like them? And it really boiled down to they had so many more weapons than what the Broncos had. So then you look at guys like Ruggs and Judy. Yes, those guys at 15, the Broncos should be jumping up, doing a fist pump. I've said if the Broncos get Jerry Judy at 15, and you guys can hold me to this, I will do a backflip. I will have my wife record it. Well, maybe she won't because she'll be sitting there saying, "You're an idiot. Don't do this. You're going to
knock out your other teeth."
Yes, exactly. What's a couple more false teeth, right? But no, really, I mean, if you can add a guy like that to the roster, it really changes how this offense has to be defended. And so, yeah, for me, you're looking at those skill position players. There's other players that I'm definitely high on as well, but I think the realistic look right now is some of those wide receivers. Lamb can be included in there if one of them falls. I do think if there's a position that's going to fall in this draft, wide receiver is it, because it's so deep. Teams are going to realize they can wait to that second and third round to still find starter quality players.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked looking at the wide receivers in this class if right now my number one in a vacuum would be CD Lamb. My number one for the Broncos specifically would be Jerry Jeudy, just because we're going to more 11 personnel. You're going to see a little bit more slot, obviously, with 11 personnel, and Jerry Jeudy can win their very good juxtaposition to Cortland Sutton. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if Henry Ruggs ends up being the first wide receiver taken, or if Laviska Shenault ends up being the first wide receiver taken, just because sometimes the further you get away from tape, teams aren't drafting players for what they did. It's what they're going to do. And if Laviska comes in, 6'2", 225 and runs a 4.3, 440, or Henry Ruggs runs a 4.2, 240, people are going to look at CD Lamb running a 4.5 or Jerry Jeudy coming in at 190 and be like, those guys are great, but how much better are they going to get? If I can get my hands on the ball of clay that is Laviska Shenault, that is Henry Ruggs, I can make them incredible. And it's something also you see, obviously Juju Smith-Schuster came in right away. Really good, but how much better can he get? A.J. Brown really good this season. He fell, but what is the ceiling? How much better can they get? So that's something that you have to look into when you're looking at these wide receivers. So right now I think there's 4 guys that could go in the top right now. Obviously Lamb and Jeudy are considered the top 2, but after the combine and the more we're hearing from the NFL side of things, I don't think that's as written in stone as many people believe going into this whole process.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Right. So, and we want to give another shout out here to Stu McPeak for your donation. We really appreciate it there. And we appreciate you appreciating our work, I guess is the way to say that. We love doing this. Absolutely. We really do. So it's good that we get to see that too.
And beautiful, beautiful picture there, Stu. Seattle, probably one of my Probably one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to. Got to go there last summer, and gosh, it was incredible. And I see another comment from Stu here. I like all beer. Maybe that's something I forgot to ask Chad if I can enjoy an adult beverage on the stream. Maybe that's for the future. So we'll see.
Yeah,
today.
Yeah. Not today.
So,
we're on our best behavior today.
Yeah, for now. He's gone. We can do whatever we want. So he said no cussing, though. So
and finished after one episode. No, I used to live in Seattle for a year. Loved it. I would move back there in a heartbeat. I love Hoxie, where I'm at, and I love the people. If I could take the people to Hoxie, or take the people from Hoxie to Seattle, I would definitely do that. But so yeah, great city, and thanks for the donation. Appreciate it.
So yeah, I guess we should come back to this whole thing here where we're talking about, players that really made you first get into, the sports in general, but also you see your next topic here is what about the first player that really made you fall in love with the draft? And for me, because I can go on talking forever, the first draft I really recall getting head over heels in love with was that 2011 draft. And you probably recall was Marcel Darius versus Patrick Peterson versus Von Miller. Actually, I was a pretty big J.J. Watt fan in that draft. I didn't think he was worth a number 2 overall pick, but I thought that he could be really special. Being in Iowa, seeing what he did with Wisconsin, I was like, man, this guy's a special player. And Denver was switching to that. Well, actually, they're going to a 4-3. Yep. I think that's the question of Von Miller fitting in that. Yep, exactly. But I really like J.J. Watt. In hindsight, that looked pretty good. That draft also had Julio Jones, Tyron Smith, Ryan Kerrigan, A.J. Green, Cam Newton. I mean, gosh, that's one of the best draft class ever. Really good draft to first get in love with it. But obviously, looking back, thank God the Broncos went Von Miller. The only one you could maybe say that they should have gone instead would be J.J. Watt, but I wouldn't trade Von Miller for the world. So I guess looking back, it's Von Miller for me.
Yeah, I actually remember I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings in Manhattan, Kansas, where good old Dalton Reisner played college football. But I was with a bunch of friends. Nobody else is paying attention to the draft but me. Like everybody else is having all these conversations, and I'm just sitting there like razor focused, like who are the Broncos taking? And I remember the crowd went like everybody went silent because I did a woo when the Broncos drafted Von Miller, and everybody's like, "What the heck is this guy doing?" He's probably had a few adult beverages, but yeah. So I was very excited. No, my first draft that I really remember being excited about was 2003. So I was a junior in high school. If you're ever wondering how old I am, that I'm the old guy other than Chad around here, seems like. But no, Terrence Newman. I don't know. He grew up in Salina, Kansas, a few hours away from me. Went to K-State. I remember going to a football camp, and he was there. He was one of the helpers, and just got to talk to him. Just really nice guy. So followed his career all through K-State. Found out he was going to be a first-round pick most likely. So then I really started paying attention to the draft of who's going to take this guy. And so from then on, like just watching that draft and being excited about it, I was hooked. Because I was like, oh my gosh, this is about building a team, and you get to do it through all these players. And I don't know, it got me very excited. So Terrence Newman is the guy that got me interested in the draft.
Where did he end up going? Was he the 5th overall pick? Do I remember recalling that correctly?
7th, I think, to Dallas.
Okay. I knew that it was up there, and I remember it being Dallas. For some reason, the 5th overall pick stuck out to me. So we got the chat coming in here, obviously. Ryan Hamilton says, it looks like we got a couple of G's running the show now. Obviously you guys are used to Zach and Chad, and they can be G's in their own right, but I think maybe we got a little bit more swag up in here now. Right. It's a little bit of Midwest vibe going on. We got Aaron, we also Joseph Malinowski. Wow, I totally butchered that. It's draft season, that's what we're here for, to butcher names and give, lukewarm takes. But some people are saying the Broncos should get Clowney. I definitely would not want him on our team between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Clowney seems like he doesn't play 100% all the time. That's something with Clowney that definitely has been an issue with him. His motor can run a little hot and cold. He has been healthy, which counts, but I just don't see why you'd put that much money into a guy who, when you already have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, I'd throw some money at Jeremiah Tauchu and call edge rusher good. Maybe you can take a guy round 3 through 7, but there's no reason to allocate resources and pay Clowney the kind of money that he's going to be looking for.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is how much money he's wanting. Why don't you just up it a little bit and get Chris Jones, who's a better true fit on the interior, and is a guy that you don't have to worry about his motor. He's going 100% all the time.
Maybe a little bit of questions about durability.
Yeah, there are some of those, and I definitely worry some. But again, you're getting a guy that's top 3 interior pass rusher in football right now, and putting that between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, I'm sorry, good luck.
Yeah, and we got some people coming on here. Oh, we got Tony saying his first one was the Jake Locker draft. That would have been the draft afterwards, correct? Or is that the same? That's 2012.
Or was that 13? No, that was that 2011?
That might have been 2011 because there was also Christian Ponder.
Right, yeah.
And all the other quarterbacks were really gosh, who was that other first one? Oh, Blaine Gabbert. So if you didn't take Cam Newton at the quarterback in the first round, you actually got a little bit you missed a little bit. So
all right, we didn't need quarterback that year, with Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow, we were set.
Yeah. So we got, a lot of questions coming in here, guys.
Yeah.
Aaron Lynch, between Ruggs and Jeudy, is the speed or route running ability more important for the Broncos offense? Jeudy is electric, but Ruggs' 4.2 speed could really open up the field for our current talent. I think that Ruggs was probably the player that I would have been more interested in with the Scangarello offense, because you have much more of a niche for that speed guy. You really almost have to have it. Where with the Shermer offense, 11 personnel, you don't really need to have such a dichotomized skill set between the two main weapons that you'd have out there. Actually, you have 3 now. And with Jeudy playing so much slot, I think that's actually the area he plays best, because he can go either way. He has much more of the field to work with, very similar to Amari Cooper. I think that's probably the best comparison for him. Maybe somewhere between Cooper and Calvin Ridley, if we're just going to be totally easy and go with the Alabama guys. But I think the 11 personnel and the ability to win so quickly and get off the line and play the slot or Z, I think Jeudy is a guy I'd put a little bit higher than Ruggs overall. And it's just because I think he's a little bit safer pick.
Right. Well, and that's it. You're getting year one production because he's the most NFL ready wide receiver in this draft. I mean, I guess you could make an argument for Lamb being that guy because of all the things that he can bring to the field as well. But Jeudy just has such an advanced route running ability. And like you said, with this offense, it is your ability to win at the line of scrimmage that makes the biggest difference, because there's going to be so many quick throws, quick plays. And this is, again, why I lean more towards weapons compared to the offensive line, is because the ball's coming out so quickly on 90% of the passes. You're still going to have some deep shots, but it's not going to be to the level that we would have under Scangarello. And so, for me, I do lean Jeudy right now. Yeah. It is a little bit safer, although Ruggs definitely has the higher upside. I mean, he could become the most electric player in all of the NFL, even more than Mr. Hill with the Chiefs.
I don't know about that. I
think he's faster. I don't think he's as loose. I think he's a little bit stiffer, and it's the looseness of Hill that, on top of the speed, that makes him a different player for me. And also, when you are paired with arguably the best receiving tight end and one of the most pass friendly offenses with arguably one of the best quarterbacks, you're going to look pretty darn good. But it scares me to compare any prospect to the best version of what they can be in the NFL. So maybe if I can go a step lower, maybe a Brandon Cooks. Maybe I'd put him higher than that, but
yeah, okay, that's fair. I don't think he is a John Russ though. I see Tony. Oh my gosh, I am so bad with these names. Sahajian. He said Ruggs is another John Ross. I could see Ruggs going 9 overall or that high, but I don't think he is John Ross. The biggest thing with John Ross is he just can't stay on the field. Dude is injured all the time, and you can see the difference in the Cincinnati offense. Their production with or without Ross is incredible. I mean, he opens up things for him, similar to Will Fuller, another injury guy with the Texans. But even if they aren't producing statistically, the threat of them on the field and how they dictate coverage is so important that, throughout the stats, they're creating for everybody else. It's like having a good 3-point shooter in basketball. Even if he isn't putting up the shots, the threat of him creates spacing for others to make easier plays, and it just makes the offense work that much more efficient. So, all right, Carl, you can get a question here.
Okay. I like this one from SJ Edgecombe, I think is how you would say that. Love you guys, the work you do. I can make arguments for us to get Chenault, even though he is comparable to Sutton. Do you think there's a chance we can get Visca? I think there's a great chance. Yeah. I think right now, I have him as my 3rd wide receiver in this draft. And I know you're a little bit higher on Ruggs than Chenault right now. But if those medicals come back clean, he is such a great fit for this offense of what he can do by himself and creating space and just being able to win one-on-one battles, his ability to just power through guys. I mean, he's got everything you want. You can really design an entire offense around him. And so, I would love Laviska in this offense. And I really do think with Shermer in the building, he becomes an even higher priority for the Broncos on their board.
The biggest thing will be medicals. Everybody's talking about Shenault, like, oh, you can't take him because of medicals. But until the combine happens and the Broncos get their own hands on him, you can't really say one way or the other. So if he goes out there and absolutely kills at the combine and goes out, 6'2", 225 and shows solid hands in the drills, he could be the first wide receiver taken. I mean, a lot of people thought he was the number one wide receiver in football coming into this year, even though we already knew what Judy and Lamb could bring to the table. It's just that athletic package is rare. I know I like to give, shout out here to Brian Koenigsberg. I like to give him a hard time, but he said that Laviska Shenault is a lot like, Derrick Henry as a wide receiver. And I wanted to give him a hard time. I was like, hey, where did you get that, Ryan? Like I said that, found the tweet back in like October or something. It's like, oh, it just came to me. But that's really the skill set there. Once you get the ball to that guy, quick in space, then it just, good luck. Good luck. And obviously with how he runs, that can be a concern because the injuries can add up, but he's just so dynamic and powerful and just a threat that while he isn't a true speed guy, the fact that he can do so much with the ball in space after the catch and create for himself and others is just incredible.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
And hey, we want to give a shout out for Super Chat, Terry Randall. Thanks for the donation, man. You are awesome. I know. Yeah, you. So no, we really appreciate it. And we really appreciate all you being here and getting this chance to interact, man. This is awesome. I love getting all these questions and getting a chance to talk here. This is great.
Yeah. No, it is great. This is really interesting. I feel overwhelmed with how many comments, but that is great because we can see so many different ones here. I do see some people bringing up the Shenault injury history. Guys, we know it's there. If he didn't have the injury history, he'd be going top 7. And that's why you just have to wait for the medicals at the combine. That if they come back as a red flag, then take them off the board. But until then, it's just too much of an unknown until then. And there's some talk that the medicals with Shenault are not as much of a concern as was made out. I mean, if he played at Alabama, there's a chance that he's playing through those injuries this year, and we're not even talking about it. But because Colorado kind of lost their let's see, I don't want to say playoff hopes, but chances for a great season pretty quickly, they were looking out for the player more than the program, and that's a big reason that he didn't play those games. So it would be interesting. I hear an interesting question here from Ben Lee. Theoretically, if the Broncos, in fact, I'm going to show it because bear with me, we're still getting this all worked out. Theoretically, if the Broncos had the number 1 overall pick, who would they take? And no trade downs, Carl. I know that's the obvious one. Oh, I'd trade down for every single pick. I think honestly, it'd have to be Chase Young. Yep. It would have to be Chase Young for me. He is so dynamic. Von Miller is going to be 31 years old this year, and they're coming up to a point in the next couple seasons where, it's going to be a discussion if they're going to keep him or not. So obviously I would keep him, but if you have a guy like Chase Young, smacking you in the face, I don't think you overthink it.
Yep. I'm with you. I like the quarterbacks in this draft. I like Tua. I like Joe Burrow, but I don't think they're so much better than what I think Locke can be.
Yes.
That it makes me pass on a talent like Chase Young. I mean, he's one of those
Trevor
guys
Lawrence?
Right. Well, then we'd have a discussion. But no, really, Chase Young, he is just one of those dynamic players that you're just going when Von Miller was coming out, you go, oh my gosh, you can get a talent like this in the NFL. And so being able to pair him with a Bradley Chubb, and you'll be able to find ways to get all 3 guys on the field at the same time. You just don't question it. You take the number 1 player in the entire draft.
Yeah. And here's an interesting question. I've seen Gage Madrid here has actually had a few that have been interesting. He's having a hope that some wide receiver prospects will fall to the second round for the Broncos. And that's a possibility. I think probably right now, gun to my head, if you said, what's the position that's going to be the best player on the board when the Broncos pick at 15? It's probably wide receiver. But are there any wide receivers that you are personally hoping fall to the Broncos round 2?
Well, for me, I mean, Jalen Reagor obviously has to be pretty close to the top of the list. Ayuk is another one.
Yes.
those two, because they're both dynamic players that just take the top off of defense. They can win short. They can win long. They can do everything. They're just a little bit lower below the other guys that are going to be there in the first round. There's not a huge drop off. And this is why the whole argument comes up of, would you want to take a guy that's an A+ in the first round or a guy that's an A in the second round and get a guy that's an A at another position in the first round? I mean, this is going to be the discussion the Broncos are going to have this year. And I'm one of those, just take the A+ and move on. Like, be excited about that. And there's going to be talent there in the second. You're going, oh my gosh, this guy's still here. How did that happen? But no, it is. I just, there's going to be some guys. And like I said, if other guys fall, like Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, one of those kind of guys falls in the first, then I'm taking that and feeling really good that I can go get a dynamic wide receiver in the second.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. A guy that I think would be interesting, I wouldn't take first overall, but I think that he is so talented, and I want to give a shout out to Bawana Beast, Okudah. The more I watch Okudah, the more I am just thoroughly impressed with his tape. I think he is so much better than any other cornerback in this class that if I was going to make tiers right now, Okudah would occupy tier 1. I'd leave tier 2 blank, and then I'd start with tier 3.
Yeah.
That's how much of a difference I think there is in talent level between Okudah and the other corners in this class. And
I want to give a shout out here to Mark Langley. Thanks for the donation, man. Garrett is used toilet bowls. Well, you might have to put up with him for another year. Unfortunately, that might be the situation the Broncos run into, and hopefully, because of Mike Munchak being in the building, he is now the unquestioned top offensive line coach in football with Skarnishian, or however you say his name, from the Patriots, retiring. So that'll be huge for the Broncos. I did want to get to this question here, though. Didn't John Elway say himself he won't draft Alabama players, hence Ruggs and Jerry?
He never said that. That'd be a really bad strategy.
Right.
That's like playing poker. Like, I'm never going to go in if I have pocket aces.
Right.
So,
right. No. He's never said it. He's never drafted an Alabama player. And I guess you can maybe – I still don't think you can draw that conclusion. He is still – we know that there are drafts that he has tried to trade up for an Alabama player. And
the opportunity just has to present itself. And he might value specifically the trench and front seven guys a little less, and running backs, of course, just because of the wear and tear and what happens at Alabama with Saban and how they use those guys, to squeeze them to the core.
Right.
But I think that you can't rule it out. I mean, the medicals are the medicals either way, and maybe that can be a tiebreaker, but I don't think that you can't live in a world where you're avoiding them no matter what. And obviously Shermer has connection to Alabama with Saban, and Vic Fangio does as well. So that might change, but I think, scouting Bible rule number 1 is you scout the player, not the helmet, which means every player is their own individual. You don't base them on the program. If you do that, you miss out on, Aaron Rodgers was a Tedford quarterback, and all the Tedford quarterbacks busted before that. So, you have to, every single player is their own individual. You have to assess them as such. So will he take an Alabama guy? Maybe. If he doesn't, that's fine, but I would not rule it out.
Right. I mean, I do know that he has a tendency to lean towards Pac-12 players.
And Big Ten, more and more.
Right. It seems like those are the two conferences that he focuses on the most. But it doesn't mean that he won't take players from other places. I mean, he's taken players from the SEC, ACC, all those different conferences. So you can read into that what you want, I guess. But for now, I really don't think you can sit there and say if Ruggs or Jerry is there, that he's going to pass on them just because they're from Alabama.
Yeah,
I think there's a good chance this could be the draft where that gets broken.
I agree, and I do want to bring this one up. I think you clicked on it maybe a second ago. I didn't want to leave it out after you teased him a little bit. MRL1983. Yeah, that was rude. Everyone give Carl a hard time. No. Chances 1 to 10 if the Broncos bring in Brady. I know it sounds crazy, but Manning – so the Manning situation, theoretically, would it be a good thing for the organization as a whole or not? I don't see them bringing in Tom Brady. Personally, I think that is a rather unlikely scenario. I think if they do bring in a veteran quarterback, the guy that would be interesting would be Drew Brees. I know that Jack Elway, John Elway's dad, was a big proponent of Drew Brees coming out of Purdue. with the Tiller offense back in, gosh, I have no idea what year that would have been, but probably early 2000s, because the Phillip Rivers was 2004. Yeah. So probably like 2000 to 2003. So if Drew Brees became available, I could see that maybe happening. But Brady, I think that's less likely. I think it's less likely either way. I think the type of quarterback you're going to bring in is a Matt Moore type, but maybe a Chase Daniel. But Tom Brady, I'm not going to say never, because crazy things have happened many times. It's the NFL. John Elway, who knows what the heck he's going to do? Right. But I'd go with 1 out of 10.
And you have to kind of remember the Broncos had Tim Tebow at that time.
Yeah.
And, like Tebow Mania was taken over, and I mean that was a fun year. That was one of the funnest years to follow the Broncos ever. I mean, just crazy wins that are just, how did that happen? We don't know. But you could tell the Broncos knew Tim Tebow is not the long-term solution. I think there's a big difference now. And also, Tim Tebow was drafted by McDaniels, not Elway, where Drew Lock is Elway's quarterback. So I think there's a lot different situations here building. And so I think Brady, I think it's Patriots, Chargers. I'm trying to think of other teams that might be
Raiders.
There you go. And really, those two teams. It's not really that they're wanting to compete for Super Bowls. It's more that they're wanting to get fans in the stands by bringing in Brady. So kind of keep that in mind, because Brady's not the same quarterback, obviously, that he was even 3 years ago.
Best fit for Brady would be Indianapolis.
It would.
Really good offensive line, gets to play indoors. The home games or the away games in the division are in the South. We'll see. That would be pretty darn crazy. So we were talking about. Go ahead.
There's some talk of Phillip Rivers going to the Colts.
Who knows? The one I know, Phillip Rivers has been connected to the Buccaneers, but I don't understand how he fits in the Bruce Arians offense when they're not only going to ask him to throw 500 times a year, but they're going to ask him to throw it vertically constantly. I guess maybe you can bring him in like a relief pitcher at the end of the game, or maybe you started it off, something kind of crazy like that, but it doesn't make sense to go the other way.
I do want to thank Brandon Miller, Scarnecchia, or is that how you say it?
Scarnecchia?
Yeah, Scarnecchia. There you go. Okay, I always get that one wrong.
Those darn Italians.
I know. Why do they have to make their name so complicated? But thank you, Brandon Miller, I always called him Scar because I could never say his name right, obviously. So, that's. But I appreciate you putting that out there for us. Here's a good one. If Andrew Thomas falls, do you take him? If you have a choice between Thomas and Judy, who are you taking? To answer the second question first, I'm taking Judy. Now, to answer the first question, there actually is a really good chance that Andrew Thomas falls, because he's another one of those players that he had this huge bump where he was a top 5 player as the season started. And now that people have seen his tape, he's starting to fall down boards. And so there really is some talk that he could be a late first-round pick. There's other offensive tackles that have moved up, and he's just kind of been pushed down the board a little bit. There are some questions. Just his game, there's things that are not there. There's times where just you see him. There's one game I remember everybody's talking about him being a top 5 player, and I watched him. I think there's like 3 or 4 pressures in the game that he gave up.
Was it the Notre Dame game?
It might have been. I think that's right. And I was just kind of like, really, this is a top 5 pick, consensus #1 offensive tackle in the draft. I was like, I guess I'm not seeing it. I still like him. And if the Broncos have a chance to get him, I'm not going to argue with that, because one, you put him with Mike Munchak, there's no telling what he can turn into. But still, there's some flaws to his game that are really causing him to fall down.
I just think that he's more scheme specific. I don't think teams view him as a good enough mover in space where he's going to be that left tackle that you want. And I don't think he's got the movement to be a heavy zone scheme guy. So I know that more and more people are talking about Tristan Wirfs being a guy that might be moving into guard, but I think Andrew Thomas, if you ask me, and maybe this is me being biased, but I think Thomas is the guy who I think is probably the one who's going to be, if you're going to kick any of those top 4 guys, between Wills, Wirfs, Thomas, and Becton into guard, I think it's Thomas. So to get to the question, I guess right now I would lean towards, man, that's a good question. Andrew Thomas or Judy? Gun to my head right now, the best player on my board would be Judy between them, but I think you can probably get a better wide receiver round 2 to pair with Thomas than you could get a offensive lineman round 2. So
I don't know. I like Niang in the second.
Niang,
Yeah.
Just the thing is, I think if you're going to use a round one pick on an offensive lineman, it's very complicated. But you are married to Garrett Bowles at left tackle, at least starting out of the gate, and you're married to, let me get my fingers in there, Juwan James in right tackle, just because of the money, the allocation. So you need a guy, if it's going to be a first rounder, they need to come in and be able to play guard year one, and then have that ability to move to tackle later on after 2020. So for me, I don't know if Becton can play guard. He's huge, strong, but he's 6'7". Like, you're gonna throw it over him? I'd love to see him in Arizona. Watch Kyler Murray throw it over him. But
gonna get pegged in the back of the head and get concussions that way.
Honestly, that might rule him out with Cleveland too. But that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're taking a first round guy, I think Thomas could play guard year one and then move to tackle. So I might lean Thomas. Honestly, that's a really tough question. The whole comments with Judy, there's some rumors about medicals with him. Those have me a little bit concerned. Yeah. But that's a great question. I want to plead the fifth for now. Ask me after the combine, but that's a good question. So, gosh, we have some more here. Mark Langley again coming in with a donation. Good to see you guys live. Thank you very much, Mark. Brandon McManus, new kicker. All right. He's okay, but I think that you definitely want to bring in competition for him this upcoming year. Honestly, the punter's the bigger issue, I would say, right now. There's a punter. Gosh, I cannot remember his name. I had him I'm working on a mock draft. Hopefully I'll have it out for you guys tomorrow. But in the Senior Bowl, everybody was excited about that Texas A&M punter, McMahon. But the South Carolina punter was the one that was getting real hype coming out of there. He was hitting like 70-yard punts. So you definitely have to bring in somebody to challenge the punter. Maybe, I don't know. I think that the punter obviously may have maybe some blackmail on our special teams coach. But that's something that might come down later on.
Sorry, if you have a choice between Ruggs or this is Clay Daglish, I think I got that right, maybe. Sorry, I know we're terrible with names. You can crucify us in the comments, but
Carl's
if you have
from
a choice,
Kansas. He reads at a third grade level.
It's pretty much, yeah. If you have a choice between Ruggs or Cushenberry, which do you take? I take Cushenberry because of how thick the wide receiver class is. Thoughts?
I take Ruggs. Cushenberry isn't a first-round talent, in my opinion. He doesn't. Yeah. He's a really solid player. I just don't see the athletic traits that make him you have to be pretty freaking special to be a first-round center. You have to, who was it last year? Garrett Bradbury, probably one of the better athletes we've seen at center in some time. And he struggled this past year in pass protection, but his ability to reach block in that zone scheme it's already one of the better in the NFL. So I think Cushenberry, if you can take him there in the second, you live with it, but I don't think the upside is there. So Ruggs is a better player. I don't think that's too much of a question. You can find, I know it's a good wide receiver class too, but it's a good center class on top of it, especially later on. I mean, round 3 to round 6, there'll probably be 4 or 5 centers that get some play in the NFL that are going to be taken in those rounds.
Right. Well, and I think you're seeing more and more how much center is a position you really can plug and play a lot of guys that can still go in there and still play at a high level. I mean, Paradis was 6th round.
Yes. And he used first year on the practice squad even. Right.
And then, McGovern was 3rd round. So you can find a quality starter or at least a starter to be able to plug in there and do pretty well. So I'm not as high on taking an interior offensive line there in the first. 2nd round on, I'm good with that. But I'm with you there.
Sorry, I put that up while you were still talking there. Should the Broncos keep Derek Wolfe or let him hit the open market? I do think that you let him hit the open market. He's not a guy where you can't let him hit the open market because you can't risk losing him. But I think Derek Wolfe, he's one that personally I would be looking to bring back if the deal is right. You're hopefully maybe offer him a bigger guaranteed money, but a lesser cap hit to bring him back. He's a leader in the clubhouse. He fits the scheme really well. And I know that the injuries have been an issue, but he's a guy who you're going to pay him to be a base starter more than anything else. So, and you have some money to burn. Obviously, you don't want to just toss money around, but I think he fits really well and it would make a lot of sense.
Right. No, I'm with you. There's other guys you got to prioritize to sign before they hit free agency. And like I said, he's a guy that I think you can let test the market and then come back and say, okay, let's match that or not match that, whatever it may be. Kind of same thing with Shelby Harris. I'm not one that's wanting to really set the market for him. I'm wanting the market to set the market for him kind of thing. I mean, just he's a good player. I think he did some good things this year, but he's not so far up my list that I'm willing to not let him hit free agency. I mean, you signed Simmons, obviously. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's really Simmons. You got to get him locked up. I don't know that there's any others that you're so gung-ho that you have to get them back on the team this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, there's going to be some other defensive linemen that are worth pursuing as well. Obviously, you have a solid nose tackle in Mike Purcell. I think he's a little bit more of a jag than he is a true difference maker, but he's cheap. He's still young. He's one of the better run stoppers. So you have him in base. You're fine there. And then Draymond Jones was really coming on at the end, but can Draymond Jones play full time as a 5 technique? I wouldn't be super comfortable with that next season. I think he's more of that 3 technique that you have in there. He's more of a sub package player, when you have the 2 defensive linemen with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller on the edges. So I do think you got to bring in somebody there, a body, and there'll be bodies available in free agency. Potentially an Akeem Hicks could hit the market with the Bears. The Bears are in cap trouble. Calais Campbell is another one that could hit the market. Obviously, Chris Jones is an interesting guy. Vernon Butler is a former first-round pick. Jordan Phillips. So there'll be some defensive linemen. I would be shocked if the Broncos didn't bring in somebody who could project as a base defensive end, the 5 technique, 4-4-eye, wherever he's lined up on that tackle, year one, and then maybe can do some stuff in sub as well. But you got to find somebody that can play that base defensive end. And I don't see that on their roster right now, because you have a guy named DeMarcus Walker who has issues one-on-one against tight ends. And then you have Draymond Jones, who they did pretty much everything they could last year to put him in sub packages and make sure that he was on the field, not in rundowns, but in pass rushing downs. So I would bring back Wolf just for stability's sake. It's not going to cost much, and you're going to get good play for 11 games max, or not max, but average.
Right. So. All right. I want to give a quick shout out here to Joseph Carson Jr. See, I can get that name. I hope I got that name. But hey, glad that you're joining us here on the live side of things. We appreciate that. Appreciate your donation. Thanks for being one of our super chat members here. Really, really appreciate that. I did like a couple of these questions coming in about Reisner, because this is one of the big questions, kind of trying to figure out where people are going to play on the offensive line, who's going to be in the offensive line. But this question came in: could Reisner play right guard and Thomas at left? In theory, wasn't Reisner originally put at left guard to babysit Bowles? I
don't know if babysit's the right word, but I think more likely what you're going to see there, I don't think Thomas has got the movement skills to play left tackle in the NFL. So for me, you could move Reisner to right guard. I think you'd probably keep him at left guard, though. And what you would see if you did bring in Andrew Thomas, and you keep showing, you already got rid of the question there, but you need to You need to be careful. You're giving too much love to Gage here. I'm just quitting. Gage, good questions.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Somebody said I look like him. I think Gage maybe got a little bit more of the red hair going on there. But I think probably if you did draft either any of these guys round one, honestly, between Wills, Wirfs, and Thomas, your offensive line would probably be Bowles at left tackle, at least to start, and having some fire on his rear end with some competition is probably going to be a good thing. And then who is it? Reisner at left guard. Center will be really interesting competition. There's been a lot of talk that they like Patrick Morris. There's been some talk that they like Schlottman there as well. And BJ Finney, who worked with Munchak and the Steelers, has been rumored to the Broncos, from Nicky Jablava to Benjamin Albright to I think Mike Kliss as well. So that's somebody that there's too much smoke going there for me to think the Broncos aren't saying, hey, we're going to go after BJ Finney. And then right guard would be Thomas, Wirfs, Wills, with right tackle being Juwan James for I don't know, a couple series until whatever happens. But,
right.
And
I do just want to comment a little bit on the babysit side of things. I think it more has to do with Leary didn't like the left guard spot. He's more comfortable at the right guard spot. And I do think he struggled a little bit playing next to Bowles. They didn't really communicate well. And so they kind of felt maybe that Reisner could do a better job relating to Bowles and kind of communicating things. And they seem
more patient.
What?
A little bit more patient.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Leary was a little bit like, this isn't for me. I think he was a little, I didn't talk with Leary, but that's, sometimes if you read enough stuff, you can read between the lines without them. You can get what they are thinking without them actually having to say it.
Right.
So, we got some super chat.
What? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, you already brought up Joseph.
Yep.
Good to see you guys in the live stream. Joseph Carson. Sorry. Still trying to figure out this stuff on the right over here. So let me see. We got some more good comments coming in here. Here's a good one that we should probably, honestly, you guys get in your questions before we get out of here. Again, keep telling us your players that really made you not only fall in love with the Broncos, obviously with Kobe passing away and everybody else, but let me know, who first got you into sports? Was it a player? Was it a family member? I mean, obviously, I think another one, shout out to my dad. He's a big one who got me into the sports as well. But this is a good question here from Micah Bradley. I worry about the cornerbacks, especially if Chris Harris Jr. leaves. Do you like any of the cornerbacks in this draft this year that could possibly help out year one? That's a really good question. Other than Okudah, well, yes. Okudah would be incredible. If Okudah's there, Okudah's one of the few players that I would be considering trading up for. That should be a podcast discussion at another time. But for me, I think there's a good number of cornerbacks that you can get. Probably 15's a little bit early, but round 2 and round 3, especially end of round 1, I think you're going to see X come off the board. There's Terrell from Clemson, who didn't have the best game in the national championship game, but I mean, Burrow versus throwing up to the Biletnikoff winner and Jamar Chase, there was not a single cornerback. I think Okudah would have even struggled there. Excuse me. I really like Jalen Johnson from Utah. He's a guy who's been trending up a lot of boards. If he has a good showing in the combine, he could end up being the second cornerback off the board. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I really like also, let me just keep moving. Christian Fulton's a guy I like a decent amount. I don't love him. Sometimes the physicality at the catch point or coming down is not as, but the upside is click and close and his hip fluidity and his length and the tenaciousness he can show, not always, but can show, is really, really good. Trevin Diggs from Alabama is another interesting one I like a fair amount. I think he's probably one that you're not going to get as much out of year one, though, because he's pretty raw. Also, I wonder if he's better in a cover 3 scheme where he can use that length, use that physicality more instead of having to play off the line of scrimmage. I just worry about his ability to play off the line of scrimmage. Obviously, Bryce Hall from Virginia is another interesting one that I like a lot. Gladney. And that was the last one. Jeff Gladney, probably one of my favorites for the scheme. I've seen him anywhere from end of the first round to the middle of the third round. I think the second round specifically is going to have just a good number of cornerbacks come off the board. But the only one that I have with a first round grade on is Jeffrey Okudah. And honestly, again, we talked about this in one of the podcasts recently. He's considered a safety, but I think in the Broncos scheme, he plays as much nickel as safety, and that's McKinney. I think McKinney would be my second defensive back off the board, and he'd fit this defense really well. He's listed as a safety, but with how much 4-2-5 you're going to play, that nickelback is a starter. So, he plays the Will Parks role.
Any thoughts on C.J. Henderson? You didn't list him.
Oh, there's a reason I didn't list him. In a vacuum, I like him. In the Broncos scheme with how much one-on-one tackling you're going to have, can't have it. He's got great tools. I think his length and his click and close and everything, leave him on an island in man coverage, that's fine. But just the Broncos, they do a really good job of limiting the air yards per target and keeping everything in front of them. So that means that the defensive backs have to be able to tackle because you're going to be in one-on-one situations. And C.J. Henderson just has struggled with that time and time again. So I wouldn't be shocked if he was the second cornerback off the board. But for the Broncos specifically, I don't think he's the best scheme fit.
All right, one more name for you here. Damon Arnett.
Oh, there's one. That's another one as well. I like him a lot. I was really bummed that he pulled out of the Senior Bowl. He could have made himself some real money. I think there is some character concerns in the background. Maybe that was Sean Wade, but he's one that I'd like a lot as well. And maybe you'll see him in my mock tomorrow. Maybe a hint. I don't know. I've been messing with this thing forever. If Eric's still on, he will come around and give me a hard time about that at some point. So, all right, we probably can get a couple more here, guys, but if you have any questions about the draft or anything like that, that would be great. We love hearing from you guys. This is all new for me, but somebody said you guys are going to get addicted to this. Right now I feel overwhelmed, but I think once I get it, it's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, sorry for the questions we've missed.
Yeah, just keep them coming in.
Right. It keeps resetting to the bottom. I'm like, wait a minute, I was reading a comment and then it reset on me. So just appreciate you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I've loved this. And we'll get a couple more questions here. You got one here, Nick?
Let me see. I'm rolling here. Who could we look at center? And what are the odds that we sign McGovern? I think that BJ Finney, I think most likely your center is going to come from somebody either on the roster already or BJ Finney. So that's going to be Schlottman or Patrick Morris, who, again, just pay attention to the smoke. I know it's lion season, but if you keep hearing something from multiple sources, that means it's coming from somewhere probably prominent. So Patrick Morris, he got a chance at left guard last year when Reisner was throwing up on the sideline in the Detroit game. But Patrick Morris, a really good athlete and somebody who the Broncos claimed off waivers, who's worked with Munchak in the past, and his name just keeps coming up. So I'm not going to sleep on him at all. If not, I think it's probably BJ Finney for that center position. What are the odds that we re-sign McGovern? Personally, I would like to bring back McGovern, but it sounds like his market is going to be 8 to 10 million. I mean, he's looking for that Cody Whitehair deal, maybe even 10.5 million. And the Broncos, I don't think would want to pay him more than 5. So I don't fault him at all. He should go get whatever money he can. He's a 5th round pick. This is your chance to make life-changing money. But I also don't fault the Broncos if they want to look elsewhere. I just don't think they prioritize paying that center position enough. I think they can find a guy. I think they think they can find a guy.
All right. We'll get to this one here. Is there anyone that is as if not more physical as Reisner and is worth trading up or down to get them? I'm talking offensive line. And there's some physical guys in this draft. Jedrick Wills, You see him pancake guys left and right. Tristan Wirfs, seen him pancake quite a few guys. I'm trying to think.
Maudi from Fresno State is a guard that is really talented. Honestly, I think the best 2 pure guards in this draft are non-Power 5 guys. You have Maudi from Fresno State, who's had some injuries, but he's really worth paying attention to. And then Hunt from Louisiana is also another guard, very physical. Guys that I wasn't as interested in when I thought we were going to keep Scangarello, but now that the Broncos have moved on to maybe some more inside zone, maybe even more gap power scheme in the run game, those guys move up the board for me. But it will be interesting. Physicality does matter, but I'm looking for athleticism and movement skills and versatility, to be able to play multiple schemes. I mean, you've seen how much the Broncos have skipped schemes over the last 3 seasons. That's over one draft class. I mean, over one rookie contract. You got to have guys who can do multiple things, right? Because you have to be able to run multiple schemes. And it's not just because you're getting turnover on the offensive coaching staff, but I mean, look at the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, the outside zone. He's running traps. He's running counters. He's running pulls. He's running and just literally everything. So I just don't want to put myself in a box. If you can do everything, obviously you're going to go higher, but those guys got to be valued more.
Right.
So, and I think we got one more question here that I want to get to. This will probably be the last one because, hey, we're over an hour.
What?
Welcome, Chad. Yeah, Chad. Welcome. Just
deal with it.
Keep it close to half an hour if you can, guys. But the last one, who's your number 1 free agent target for the Broncos, from Philip Morrell? And for me, the number Jones. I know I've had a crush on him since when he was playing at Mississippi State. One of my first blog posts I ever did. I don't want to, say where exactly or what my name was, but I was hyping Chris Jones like crazy. I'm like, this is the guy you want. He's going to be so good. You can get somebody later on, and the upside is here. He can play 5 technique down to 3 technique. He can get after the passer. He's going to be special. And turned out he was special. Sometimes you're going to get lucky. I don't want to say, I'm this defensive line savant. There's as much luck involved in the opportunity as everything. Mm-hmm. But I absolutely love Chris Jones. And if not only do you get the bonus of adding him to play between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, which would be, getting goosebumps, but you're weakening the Chiefs. So I actually added Chris Jones on Twitter a couple years ago. I said, hey man, when time's up, come play in Denver, play next to Von Miller. It'll be great. And he added me back and said, nah, fam, I'm good. But if he's signs with them, I'm going to make sure that he knows about that. Yeah. Don't keep that same energy, man. So,
well, I'm going to go Byron Jones.
Okay.
And the big reason for me is just when you think about this Fangio defense, you need cornerbacks and safeties that can be multiple, that they can do lots and lots of things on the field. Well, Byron Jones has been both a high-quality safety and a high-quality corner in the NFL. And he's shown just ability just to do anything and everything. He's a great athlete. So, I mean, you're talking about some of the wide receivers here in the AFC West and the athleticism that they bring. Byron Jones, I mean, if you're talking about guys that blew away the combine, Byron Jones is at the top of that list. Oh, and so just want to – I mean, that would be a guy that I think would really fit well with the Denver Broncos.
the thing for me with Byron Jones is that, while I think he is a really fun player, versatile, kind of that cornerback safety hybrid, am I willing to make one pay in the NFL when the guy has that little ball production? I don't know. I think I might take my chances. Oh, man, I don't know. That makes me concerned. It really does, because you saw Dallas. I think they just hired Mike Nolan, who blast from the past there. He was the Broncos defensive coordinator there for, I don't remember. That was a while ago. But he talked about how important it is to get guys who can make plays on the ball. And that's just something Byron Jones doesn't bring. And obviously, if they're throwing it at Chidobe Awuzie from Colorado, or that quarterback from Michigan, whose name is escaping me right now, that Dallas has, you can do those. You won't throw it at Byron Jones, but I might be personally looking for maybe something a little bit more off the quote unquote scrap heap. The second tier kind of guys. Maybe a guy that I just keep coming back to is Prince Amukamara. I'd be fine going into next season with a round 2 to 3 cornerback, a Isaac Yadam, Bryce Callahan, Prince Amukamara, and Devontae Bosby as your top 5. Now, is that going to be the no-fly zone? No, it's not. But we're not playing the Wade Phillips, leave your cornerback on an island and then bring everybody good luck. It's much more about the unit and the entire back 7 covering. So you don't have to spend that kind of money on a cornerback. Obviously, you still want better cornerbacks if you can help it. You want good players if you can help it anywhere. But I just don't know if Byron Jones is one that I personally would be willing to back up the Brinks truck for. So that's just my take.
All right. I want to get a quick shout out here to Philip Merrill. Thank you for your donation. Thanks for being a super part of the super chat. And also just Irvin Bailey. I feel you, man. I feel you. Southwest Nebraska. I'm Northwest Kansas. I understand being surrounded by Chiefs fans, man. So, hey, it's been a great show. Appreciate all of you joining us here today. This has been so much fun. I really, this has been great. And Nick, always fun to talk to you, man, and get this chance to talk some football. Any last second thoughts here?
I know that we had a lot of comments on here that Carl and I did not get to answer. Folks, get on Twitter, follow me, follow Carl, but just shoot us a question on Twitter literally any time of the day, and I will do my best to get back to it, and I will personally respond back to you with whatever questions you have, draft, Bronco related, philosophy on life, what's the best kind of beer to drink. I mean, literally at me on Twitter. I'm here for you. It's probably my favorite thing that I enjoy. Well, next to talking with you, Carl. Let me see. Can I? High five.
I'm going the wrong way.
See, it's backwards.
There we go. We did it.
Yeah, it's inverse. I keep trying to mess with my hair and I keep going the wrong way. It's driving me nuts. But I appreciate you guys so much. But that's probably going to have to wrap up today. Otherwise, Chad is this will be our last one if we keep talking. But this is brought to you by Overtime Media. Make sure you follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler, MHH. Follow me on Twitter at Nick Kendell, MHH. That's Kendell. Make sure you head on over to Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. And make sure you go on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, a comment. We really appreciate it. When you guys can leave something funny too, I enjoy it. Like, I'll be walking between meetings or walking to talk with patients, and I'll just check and see if anybody's left a comment recently. And just know that I do read them. I really appreciate it, and it really helps us share the show. Make sure you're sharing it on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, the YouTube, wherever you're at. And you can find us, the BTB Football Pod, on iTunes, and the Huddle Up, obviously, and now you got the Dove Valley Deep Divers as well. But, it's the first one. This isn't going to be the last one. I think Tuesdays are going to be our slot. So, you guys make sure you give a hard time to Chad and Zach and Eric and Lance. We're all good friends, but I want to say that we can get a little bit competitive. So you can let them know that they need to step their game up, maybe if you do enjoy us, or if we need to step our game up. So really do appreciate you guys, everything, giving us this platform, and we will see you all very soon. So you got anything before you want to get out of here, Carl?
Nope. That was fun, man. Enjoyed it, everybody. Can't wait to see you next time.
All right. And be prepared for the consistently hour-long podcast. We're going to bring you more, I guess you want quality over quantity, but we're going to bring you both. So until next time, guys, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon.
Go Broncos.
And go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.